North Carolina lawmakers are looking to introduce some new laws around what does and doesn't go into the state background checks for gun licenses, as a new investigation has revealed that sheriffs are going through everything from criminal background to medical records, including applicants' STD status. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. There's definitely been states that have wanted to go through very private information in order to determine if someone is eligible for a gun license. Mental health evaluations have been a popular suggestion, and of course there was the time that New York wanted people's social media passwords to check their social media and private messages before making a determination on whether or not someone could exercise their rights. Luckily, that one got shot down. But now, in North Carolina, we have an interesting situation because in a recent unrelated investigation, lawyers learned that the Mecklenburg County Sheriff has been receiving everything from criminal information to medical records with STD status and even OBGYN records when doing their background checks. And they never told anyone or reported it because, according to the sheriff's office, it could be relevant information to determine if someone is fit to carry a gun. I don't know how one woman's records of her cesarean section really applied to this standard, but that's the literal argument that the sheriff's office is making here. Now, before I get into all of the details of how and what is happening, I'd like to drop a little info bomb about a really cool ammo subscription service called Ammo Squared. Ammo Squared helps you stay stocked up on ammo automatically with a set-it-and-forget-it approach that lets you pick your calibers, your monthly budget, and how often you want it shipped, so you never have to worry about ammo shortages or changing prices locally or online ever again. Their company is designed to help gun owners stock up on ammo on literally any budget. This monthly budget can be anything from the price of a few boxes to the price of a single round if that is how much you want and can spare. Everything about it is fully customizable. There's no minimum to buy, no membership fees, and all ammo is factory new from brands that you trust. They only ship when you want it, and the rest of the time it is stored for you in a climate-controlled environment. So thank you to Ammo Squared for providing such a cool service to gun owners since 2015. Attorney Ron Shook was working an unrelated 2022 lawsuit against the Mecklenburg County Sheriff, which settled in 2024. That case revolved around the agency failing to issue concealed carry permits in a timely manner. But during depositions in the case, an MCSO employee detailed all the different kinds of records the office gets in and considers when issuing a permit. This employee said that those records include things like STD status, how many children people have, whether or not they've had an abortion, records of labor and delivery, C-sections, and more. The employee said that sometimes these are records that the office didn't even request, which raises a few questions. First of all, the issue of HIPAA, if these records are being sent without being requested. Not really sure how that works. Second, then, is that it sounds like the implication is that sometimes these are records that the office does request. Third, why are they requesting them? Fourth, why are medical providers telling the sheriff if an applicant has herpes in the first place, especially in those cases where the sheriff allegedly didn't ask for it? Well, so in North Carolina, when someone applies for a gun license, they have to sign an administrative office of courts form, which I was surprised to see is pretty much just a regular medical release form. It looks almost exactly like the records request form that I used in my mental health practice, except with the words sheriff all over it. Now, in the mental health world, how this typically works is you get one of these forms on your fax machine and you go into your records and you write up a 1 or 2 page tops summary, because unless it's a full-on subpoena, it's generally not a good idea or advised to release mental health records for all kinds of reasons, from it being privileged information to other entities being able to really easily misinterpret them, between shorthand and not knowing anything about mental health. Rarely did I ever send out a request for physical health records from a doctor, but typically that sort of thing goes like this. It lands on a fax machine in the records department, they pull the record, and fax over an entire copy. In one case that I had to do this, the file I got back was 2 inches thick. But I was acting in the capacity of being another provider, sworn to HIPAA and confidentiality, and issued the records request at the request of the client, not under the guise of a sheriff determining whether or not a person can safely exercise their rights. A spokesperson of the sheriff's office told WCNC that the agency doesn't have any control over what records they receive, and there is some truth to that. But why are they requesting medical records anyway? Why from OBGYNs and other specialists? Why does the form require a resident to write down every doctor they've ever gotten treatment from, whether it's mental health or physical? How is that information any of the sheriff's business? Sometimes hundreds of pages are sent, but these may contain no evidence suggesting the applicant is unfit to safely handle a handgun, and the concealed handgun permit is granted, MCSO's statement said. Other times, only a few pages are sent, yet they reveal significant concerns, such as evidence of addiction or mental health issues, which could lead to a denial. Even records from providers not specializing in mental health, such as an OBGYN, may be relevant. For example, discussions about an abortion might indicate severe depression or suicidal thoughts, raising concerns about the applicant's ability to handle a handgun safely. Another 2024 deposition did back up their claims that they received pregnancy-related information linked to an applicant's depression. I hesitate to advise anyone to take mental health advice or diagnoses from a non-mental health provider, but that is neither here nor there. There are apparently two relevant state laws here. One only allows for the release of records concerning the mental health or capacity of the applicant when considering a person's qualifications. The other requires the sheriff to consider any physical or mental infirmity when determining whether a person's CHP permit should be approved or denied. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with this law. So the way that the law is written and the way that the form is structured, if you've ever received any mental health treatment at all, if you have ever seen a therapist for anything, it could be anxiety, it could be dealing with a divorce, it could be anything at all that should not preclude you from owning a gun, you have to hand over that information. Now, people seek out mental health counseling for all kinds of things. I had people come into my office and only scheduled a single appointment because they were like, hey, my kid is going through something. How do I help support my child? And technically, under North Carolina law, they would have to put my name down as mental health treatment. And just because you are seeking out mental health treatment doesn't mean that you have a mental health issue. There is literally a code in the DSM for something called adjustment disorder. It literally means that someone is a normal, functioning human being that is just going through some shit, and you have to give them a diagnosis because that is what insurance companies require. But still, you would have to put that name down on that form. Now, Republican Representative Keith Kidwell is planning to introduce legislation to limit what kind of information gets sent to the sheriff. He's sponsored bills in the past to get rid of the permitting process altogether, but as we've discussed on this channel, those efforts haven't been successful. And I will not even comment on why, because that is a whole nother can of worms. You can search out and watch those videos. Now, we don't know what this new legislation will look like yet, but he told WCNC anything that goes beyond the necessity that the sheriff or sheriff's deputies would need to make that decision is invasive in my mind. It's inappropriate for them to be provided that information because it's not necessary to make the decision they need to make. That's blatantly none of their business and should not be provided. And he's absolutely right, especially considering that this is on the heels of another recent investigation that showed the sheriff's office, the same sheriff's office, was inappropriately denying permits to applicants who had records of being sober for over 30 years. As for the current topic, what it comes down to is that if the state is going to keep its permitting process, they need to change what information is being requested, limit it, and as much as it sucks for the providers, they need to suck it up, comb through their record, and simply write back a form letter stating whether or not the person has serious mental health issues or physical disabilities that would somehow impact their gun ownership. Of course, therein lies the problem of it being a subjective determination, and us mental health people, we're told to avoid that kind of liability as much as possible. But so long as the person has at least one working arm to shoot with and is not a federally prohibited person, it shouldn't be an issue. And seeing as the law requires people to apply and renew in person, well, I think the sheriff's office would know if someone didn't have arms. And they would be able to make that observation on their own. I know that I'm being facetious here, but really, even something like a physical disability should not stop someone from being able to exercise their rights. I know it's controversial with the ATF, but for example, pistol braces exist for a reason. Now, I am getting riled up, as I always do when things with mental health come up from people who obviously know nothing about mental health, because that is what I did before being a mom. So I'm going to sign off now. You guys know my stance on this. You guys also know the drill for all of the algorithm things. Please do them. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there and happy shooting. Also, especially after this video, very glad that I picked the Southern Carolina to live and not the North.